We are live, and here we go.
Mind right, game tight, elevate your mind sight. These interviews will ignite your insight. Take notice of the lessons we learned. Why? So you can focus on shining your light bright. We share our greatness and we're courageous. Listen closely because it is contagious. Hit the subscribe, the show's worldwide. Keep an open mind and treasure yourself to shine.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Mind Right Game Tight Show. I'm your host, Michelle Morgan. I'm a transformational sports coach, which means I work with student athletes with the mindset in order to continue to help empower your mind and reaching your full potential in sports and in life. Because I like to say we're going to spend a lot more time in life than we do in sports. I'm also the founder of the nonprofit Vida Soto. Vida Soto is a nonprofit dedicated to empowering our young adults in focusing on self-love to become more aware and acknowledge that so we can continue to radiate that throughout all areas of our life. I also created the curriculum, the Mind Right Game Tight program, because if your mind's right, your game's tight, no matter what you do in life. That includes 2 books that I wrote, a book and a workbook titled How You've Triumphed in Sports, with the foundation being self-love and using all the life skills that we're learning through sports and applying it to life. Now I'm going to go ahead and welcome our guest for today. Our guest today is Crystal Payne. Go, babe. Crystal Payne was born in Washington, D.C., and grew up in Temple Hills, Maryland. She loved basketball, movies, and taking pictures with her Polaroid camera growing up. When Crystal was in 4th grade, she played organized basketball for the first time at a local recreation center in Temple Hills, Maryland. She then went on to play AAU, middle school, high school, and eventually college basketball at Columbia Union College, and then transferred to Bowie State University, a historically Black college. While juggling basketball, majoring in communications, minoring in broadcast journalism, Crystal also got the opportunity to participate in a 48-hour film festival where she fell in love with the art of film. She always loved movies and had now developed a passion for video editing. She then received an internship at a local TV/news station where she got the opportunity to edit news packages. After graduating from college, Crystal picked up and moved to Los Angeles, California to pursue her dreams of being in the film industry. She got certified as an editor and received her first job shortly after as an assistant editor. Crystal worked her way up to lead assistant editor at a small post-production house where she wore many hats and learned she had a knack for tech. She got offered a job at a larger post house as an Avid IT tech where she managed servers, Avid media composer editing software, computers, and etc. While working as an Avid tech, Crystal also managed to start her own small business on the side, filming and editing reels, music videos as well. Crystal now works at NBC Universal Pictures as an Avid engineer where she supports 40-plus video editing systems, manages multiple servers, networking, develops workflows for post-production, builds video and audio bays, scouts new technology for the company, and so much more. So thank you, Crystal, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be
You're
here.
welcome. I'm happy to have you here too. And I mean, you pretty much got a great resume behind yourself. So just going back, like starting from when you started sports, like how did you get introduced into sports growing up?
So you know what? I was, my mom played basketball, actually. She was all metropolitan in Washington, D.C. So she kind of, I guess that's kind of how we would spend time together. We'd play and, I had pictures of them putting basketballs in my hands since I was like 5. So it was a little innate for me. So when I got to elementary school, so I'm only 5'5". So, but I was this height at like age 10, right? So everybody.
So they're like, she's gonna be 6 foot.
Right. So everybody's like, oh, we got to get her in basketball. I already loved it, right? But then everybody's like, oh yeah, we got to get her in basketball. So I actually a PE teacher in elementary school used to watch us like play around, play with the boys and stuff like that. And then he was like, come jump ball, with some of the boys. He picked like the tallest dude, on the playground. And I jumped and like I could jump higher than him and anybody else. So it started that way. And then he was like, okay, like play at my recreational center, played there. He started a team at my elementary school around me. And so I helped pick out some players and we just started a team. And, then I went on to middle school and played there, and then high school and on to college. And, it was at that point when I started to feel like I had the desire to do other things and wanted to explore some other things. So that was kind of the, I guess, in a nutshell, basketball.
Gotcha. Did you know that you wanted to continue playing basketball in college, or was that something that happened? Because first you went to Columbia Union College. So
Right.
what was the experience there? And then was that like a junior college, and then that's where you transferred to Bowie State?
So no, that was actually a 7-day Adventist college where, and I'm not 7-day Adventist. I ended up, I was a little bit complacent in high school, and I kind of joked around a lot. And my mom was like, you got to, fill out these college, forms. And, we got to, cause I was getting recruited, but I wouldn't respond to, colleges. And I was kind of goofing around a bit and figuring out, other things I wanted to do. And so that's where she sent me.
Okay.
Kind of a punishment in a way of like, okay, well, you're gonna go here where we had to have like, a certain amount of worships a week. And it was completely different to how I grew up. So I ended up going there, and I ended up, playing, and I got a partial academic, partial athletic scholarship. And it was a D2 college, so you can't get a full athletic scholarship at D2. So I ended up, working, and playing basketball. And, I found my little community there and had a great time. But then we ended up getting a coach that I just clashed with. And, I also was starting to feel like I wanted a little more culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I transferred to the HBCU, and I actually didn't end up playing there when I transferred. I actually stopped playing because I wanted to play overseas. And then I was, training really hard. And this was before I decided to transfer. I was playing really hard and, preparing for that, starting to groom myself for that. And then a friend of mine had a really bad injury, and she was a lot older than I was and had to come back and start all over. So it got me thinking, well, what are my other passions? What other things can I nurture so that I can have options? And so then I ended up, that's when kind of doors started to open, and I started to, think about, well, you know what? I did always want to go to a school with a little more culture. I wanted to go to HBCU. And so that's when that came into play. And I wanted to get the full experience. So I didn't play. And I was also kind of with that new coach that I clashed with, kind of changed things a little bit too, to where it took the fun out of it for me. So it kind of made me, I want to explore, other things.
So even though it was your mom's decision to put you in that school, and then you had the clashing with your coach, now was that a decision that you had to go to your mom for to kind of approve that, even though like she said, I need you to be here, or were you starting to already start to show like that maturity where she was like, okay, now you can basically, I trust you now to make a decision for what maybe possibly feels good for you and what may be best for you?
Yeah. So my mom was really good about, giving us decisions and wanting to give us the tools so that we would make our own decisions. So she always, asked us, what do you want to do? And that's kind of why she was a little disappointed in me, because she felt like, well, I'm letting you make your own decisions, like do it. Some parents force their kids to go here or go there. And, I'm, waiting on you, and you're not making any decisions. So when I did start to make my own decisions, she actually was very supportive. So, she actually encouraged it and said, yeah, you got a lot more to offer than just basketball. So absolutely, like, explore, everything you want, because my mom always believed that like I was meant to do many things. So she was kind of just sitting back waiting, like, which avenue you want to take, which route.
Yeah. Right. Right. And so also that friend had a big impact too, because it got you to think like outside of the box and outside of sports as well. And then how was your experience at an HBCU?
It was great. So I grew up in a predominantly Black area. So my school was 90% Black. So for me, going to an HBCU felt like home. It was like when I went to the Seventh-day Adventist college, I actually had a bit of a culture shock. So I was, a little out of my element, and but it was good. It was refreshing. But I was ready to go back to my comfort zone a little bit, and kind of, sometimes how you don't really appreciate things, or not so much appreciate, you just don't think about certain things until you're taken away from it. And so I didn't think about some of the culture and some of the things we were learning in school and stuff like that until I went to a school where, that same, nurturing wasn't necessarily there. We weren't, getting some of the, like, for example, in history class, like that was just, it was more than just, February Black History Month. It was
Gotcha.
all year round. And so you missed that. And so I missed that. And so I wanted, that kind of stuff back again, because now, I'm a little bit older, a little more mature, and I'm paying attention now, so, so I'm like, oh, man, I want that experience. So.
And what would you say is, like, from that experience that you had with like a clash with a coach? Because a lot of us can, relate to that. I can relate to that, and not actually agreeing totally with a coach. And like, what would be like your advice, or like, how did you even like move through that? Like, was that during the middle of the season or towards the end of the season? And, what was something that you learned from that experience with, having a coach that you clash with?
Yeah, it was interesting, because I was used to pretty strong bonds with my coaches, and the coach that left, we were really tight. So to have that happen was, it was a shocker for me. It was the first time this had happened, and I just felt so discouraged, because, I was, again, I had that, I would say I had a little bit of a reality check, because I got a little complacent, because I was, used to starting, and I was used to being one of the stars of the team. And, when he came along, he was like, no, I don't know you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know you, and I don't have that rapport with you to just, put you in this spot. You have to earn it. And it was humbling, I will say. But at the same time, I think that his methods were, looking back on it now, his methods were just pretty radical. And I think that, sometimes adults get frustrated with kids and let that get the better of them. And I think that, was kind of what happened then. And so for me back then, I also wasn't, I wasn't very, patient or tolerant, I should say. So as soon as something happened that I didn't like, I was out of there. Right. And so I didn't even give it, a chance. I just kind of said, you know what? I'm already thinking about other things. This is just like the icing on the cake. I'm out of here, and I just said, forget it. I didn't like the way it felt, and it wasn't fun for me anymore. And that's all it took for me to just, start to now think about other things.
Got it. And then when you got to Bowie, did you feel like even though you had seen like the impact of like, oh, I need to think of other things outside of sports, was there a piece of you that still like missed playing basketball or being part of a team in that sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I went back and forth about whether I was going to play or not. And actually the coach that I bonded with at the first college transferred to that school, that HBCU.
Oh,
Which
okay.
I think is one of the reasons. I think that's one of the things that pulled me towards that school, because I missed my coach. And then, and I actually, I thought I was going to play. And then, I got there and I started to build a community of other friends that weren't athletes, because my whole life, all my friends were athletes. I've been playing basketball my whole life, AAU, recreational ball. I mean, it never stopped. So my community was of that. And so when I started to meet other people who had different, interests and, exposing me to different things, it was so refreshing. It was just like, oh, wow. Like, I don't have to just be in this basketball world. I can still love it, but I don't have to be so immersed in it to where I, limit myself to other things.
Got it. And then when you were like when you chose your major, so communications with a minor in broadcast journalism, did you already had an idea that you're going to work in the film industry, or like what was your thought process going in and saying this is what I'm going to major in?
Yeah. So, excuse me. So, back, at Columbia Union, which was the Seventh-day Adventist college,
Mhm.
I ended up. So I started hanging with a few people who were, or actually, they were athletes too, but they were older, so they already had a passion for film, and so they entered into a 24-hour or 48-hour film festival. So they needed people, right? And so, we were friends and they were like, come and do this and, help us with this. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. And I ended up helping with some editing, some acting, I was holding one of those big boom mics,
Oh,
that, and it was, and we stayed up like almost 2 days straight. Like, I must have gotten like only like 5 hours of sleep in 2 days. Like it was, we were going hard. And so it was, but that was how it was. It was like, you got to get a movie done as fast as possible. They give you a, uh, they let you pick a genre out of just like a hat, and then
mm,
you have to make that type of movie. So we just up all night with scrambling, and it was one of the funnest experience I'd had next to basketball. So I was like, oh wow, something can make me feel this good other than basketball.
mm.
So that's when I started getting interested in that, and then I started helping them like with more projects and having them show me different things and learning like all the different kind of jobs that come with the entertainment industry and the film industry. And I was sold. I
Sounds
was
like it. You're like, I want to keep staying up and doing this.
I was
And
like,
it's
yeah, I like being up late at night. So like, this was perfect, and it was, and just the camaraderie, you know what I mean? Like everybody just working together, supporting each other. We had, one person go and, say, okay, let me grab everybody waters and food and, bring it back. And it was just like, everybody just knew what needed to be done. Like, and, if you saw someone, kind of tired, you'd be like, okay, like, just go rest for a bit, you know what I mean? And like, let me know where you left off. Like I'll pick up, and then, we'll give you a call like in a little bit to come back. Like, and I didn't even need to set an alarm, because like they called me and they were like, okay, you ready? Or they came and knocked on my dorm door and was like, okay, come, ready. And it was just like, it was just such a, I think just like I said, the first time that I had a community like that wasn't basketball.
mm. Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like you exactly what you said. Like you had that team
Yep,
experience where you're
exactly.
bonding, you're picking each other up. Definitely that team atmosphere, that family atmosphere, and you're experiencing it all together. And so, like, you're sharing something special as you continue to go on throughout that journey creating. And so, when you graduated, was it right after you graduated that you said, I'm going to move to LA? Or, like, what was that process like from you to deciding that you were going to move across the country? And I mean, we know that like LA is like the home of film, Hollywood.
Right.
So like what made you make that decision, and like did you feel confident? Like what was that knowing that you were going to move across the country?
Absolutely did not feel confident. So I ended up working at a local news station, local TV station, where they did news, and you get to where you get to try out so many different things there. So I ended up, I'd already knew that I liked editing, but I hadn't done it much. So there I got the opportunity to really edit news packages, and I loved it. I was just like, oh, this is what I want to do, because I tried being behind the camera. I liked that, but it didn't give me as much of a rush as editing. Like my creative outlet, I think, was I was exposed to my creative outlet, I guess, because I just felt like, oh my goodness, like I'm such this creative person, and I didn't really know it
Mm,
until I, got to edit. And so um, after that, it was for me between New York and LA, and I'm not a New York person.
oh.
I don't like the flow of New York. It's just not me.
Mm,
I have family. I've been to New York many times, and I have family up there, and I was just like, no, this isn't me, right? It doesn't suit me. So I said, LA it is. And I was just like, now or never. And I took my little, $2,000 that I had saved up. That was all I had in my savings. And I was just like, all right, we're going to figure this out. And I
What?
just drove cross country. I had my brother and my cousin drive with me. We drove in shifts. We got out here in 2 days. It was like we beeline.
We're not stopping at none of the monuments. We're not. We're going straight through.
Yeah. So I actually found a vocational school that specialized in editing. So I got certified. So I was beelining out there to get there for registration, and so I ended up getting certified as an editor, which was great. It was a great school. You either could specialize or get certified as an editor, an audio mixer, or a motion graphics designer. So they had 3 programs, and they had you all kind of work with each other. They had the cohorts kind of, you would have your cohort. So I had my editing cohort, and then we would meet with the, motion graphics and Pro Tools, which is the audio program. We would meet with them every so often, so you could get an understanding of how these specialties kind of work together in the industry, which I thought was amazing. And which prepared me for later, because, I didn't know that was going to be how the industry was, that you were going to need to know how to pass something over, for example, to a graphics designer or to an audio specialist. So it was, I didn't even realize at the time, like what I was getting, or the tools that I was getting. And it was just great.
So what's the name of this vocational school? Because it sounds like it made a huge impact on you, and it gave you a lot of tools that you weren't even aware of. It sounded like that was actually going to propel you in your film career. Just so in case anybody's looking for, like, what vocational school is she talking about?
Yeah,
that changed her life.
Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore.
Oh man,
it was called Video Symphony. I know. I know, it was called Video Symphony. It was a great school, but they do have others that are comparable to that. Like there is Moviola, which is in Hollywood, and there's also I don't know much about this school, but I hear about it, called Full Sail in Florida. And one thing that I think was important for me too, that I wish I would have known early on, was that you don't have to necessarily go to a college, right, to get some of these tools. You can go to a vocational school, which just specializes in whatever your niche is. I didn't know, like, for example, taking communications, that's so broad. It's like it's very broad. And so there all I took were editing classes. I mean, and you can take, or they will refer you to places, like if you, let's say, because I think in college you get some of the interesting things that you get are just kind of, your basic business classes, because you sometimes, life happens and you sometimes switch, right? You sometimes change your mind and all that, and you still get kind of those general classes, just so you can kind of have that in your back pocket. And so I do think that's important, but they had a lot of, the network was huge. So if you did want, something else, you built a large network and connections to be able to get what you want or get something different. And so I think that if I had that, or, knew that, back then, that might've been something I would have done. Or at least my brother, who is heavy into music, had, because college just was not for him, right? College is just not for some people. But I think that would have been perfect for him. And it's like it was a 12-month program. So, and they also, and the good thing about that school too, a vocational school, is they do give you some of those basic general classes. Like there was a class that was, it was something like career interviewing, and it taught you how to interview. And stuff like that, which, is important, because, you overlook stuff like that. You think, oh yeah, I know how to interview, you know what I mean? I know. And then, you get in there and then you're like, do I know how to interview? It just, you know?
Wait, what's my name again? Yeah.
Right? Like, wait, what, have I worked before? Did I have you know? So it's just like,
Did I do that 48-hour film festival? Yeah,
right.
was I a part of that? And I mean, I think that's so important that you bring that up because I mean, as the world has evolved since we were in school, like just vocational or even just the thought of like a 4 year, especially just what comes with like the student loans and things like that. I don't know if you know this answer because Maria Reynoso has a question, and she's asking like, is it expensive, and can a high school student like afford it after graduation? And I think that's important because if I already know like this is what I'm interested in, like you said, I don't need to go take those general classes before I even, like you said, going to a major, maybe depending on what I go into, it's so broad that I haven't
Mhm.
pinpointed it rather than man, what you're talking about, I mean, it just sounds like it gets you like right in the midst of it, and you're already starting to network within a community that you really want to be a part of and continue to pursue yourself in that career.
Absolutely. Yeah. The some of them are very inexpensive. They do function similar to 4-year colleges where you can get federal assistance or federal aid, and me personally, I did. They also had so I also worked out a deal with the school where I told them I realized that they didn't have very many pictures. They didn't have enough marketing because it took me a while
Mm.
to find them. So
Okay.
yeah, so I was like, you guys could use some marketing. I take pictures. You guys want me to take some pictures? And so they experimented and used that as a scholarship kind of program that they've never done before. And so I would take pictures for them, and then they would pay some of my tuition. So yeah, and
Wow.
yeah, it was so they, when and that's the beauty of I think of going to like vocational schools because they're so much smaller. I mean, my cohort was 10 students.
Mm.
So, when they have less students to work with, sometimes they're like more willing to try different things. And they said, okay, we'll try your idea. You know what I mean? And so, that to me was invaluable. That I think, I personally don't think I would have gotten at my 4-year college.
Yeah. I mean, could you say like you got so much more out in that shorter amount of time at the vocational school than you did? I mean, take away the social aspect and all that stuff that you get at a university, right? But
Mhm.
just that piece, that you got out of that in that short period of time.
Absolutely. I think that, if I'm being honest, I got way more out of that school than I did out of my 4-year college because, for one, like I said, the classes were, I mean, less than half of the size of my college classes.
Hmm.
So I built that relationship with those teachers and got to get, a more, I would say more like hands-on one-on-one training from them because they had enough time to go around and work with us individually, for and they, the thing about the vocational schools too, they kind of treat it almost like a little bit like a job too, because you're there for 8 hours and then you have classes for X amount of time and then you have lab time for X amount of time. So you actually get your hands-on training every
Mm,
day and not have to do it on your own time, only. And
yeah.
so I think that's important, you know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, we're getting all this information fed to us and stuff like that, but it's like I'm really visual. And so I
Mm,
learned best from actually doing the work. And so the fact that they could split it up and have, half of the time being, getting that information, which is great, but then the other half applying it, you know, in the same day. And I don't have to wait until, because we all worked too. So
hmm.
it's like, trying to find time outside of school sometimes it's just not possible sometimes. And so the fact that
Yeah.
they factored that in there, I think was great. And so I think yeah, I really did get a lot out of that school. It's
Yeah,
not
that's
they closed down.
I know, right? But I still think what you gave and just the background of it all is so important. So for everyone or anyone who's watching, or if you know someone who wants to get in the film industry, and sometimes I think we don't even know where we start because the behind the scenes is not showcased, right?
Right.
Like only the what's in front of us on the TV is what's showcased. So sometimes we don't even know like what really exists and that would allow us to still remain in film and then what's out there. And so it's also just opening our minds and say, oh, there's another way to do it. And also just opening our minds to like using that Google and seeing what vocational schools are out there or, getting in touch with me to get in touch with Crystal to ask, because this is a person who has firsthand knowledge. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's like, I'm all about cutting the learning curve in half. It's like, who do we know that can help us there? But I do want to go back to, you said you had $2,000 in your bank account. You drove across the country, but okay, you just said you needed to make a beeline to the vocational school. Like, what was your, like, in terms of like work or living, like, I just think that just having that confidence, even though it was scary, like there was still a faith or belief that you had in yourself to say, like, I'm going to do this. And it was like, where did that come from for you to even take that step to do it? Because you didn't know all this was going to happen.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's a good question. I guess when you asked, if I was confident, and I said no, I will go back and say that part of me was because I was always that person who, if I was passionate about something, I'm just gonna do it. Like, even though I'm scared, my passion usually trumps my fear. And so I think part of me felt like everything's going to work out because it has to, right? Because I'm passionate about it and no one's going to tell me anything, And so I think, even when I asked, like, my family, I asked my mom, my dad, my brother, they always said that if if I was focused on something, like, there was no like stopping me from being focused. Like, I would have tunnel vision, And so I always think about that and always use that, and because it's true, and I like to kind of revisit that when, I guess when I'm starting a new venture, because I feel like it helps me realize, and it helps me build more confidence when I'm, scared of stuff. Because I'm like, okay, well, if I'm passionate about it, it'll work out, because right, it always has, right? So
yeah,
I kind of use that, and I think that's what gave me that little bit of confidence to actually do it.
And then what is an experience that you had where you were challenged while pursuing a career, or even obviously having a career in the film industry? Because I see where, like, there was like a little challenge with like that coach at the first school, and then you kind of pivoted and, you got on your way on another, path. And then, like, what was a point where you were challenged, on this journey, and like, how did you overcome that?
You know what? So I would say me being naive, because our teachers would tell us over and over again that 9 times out of 10, when you leave this program, you're not going to become an editor right away. Like, you're just not going to leave this school and your first job is going to be an editor. They stress that we would have to be an assistant editor first. So get your mind, geared towards being an assistant editor. So and they also said that the industry is a little, how can I say, just kind of shifty. Like, no job is permanent, is what they say, what they like to say. And so and so I'll say that, and then I'll also say that I didn't know, it's my first time in the industry. So when I got my first job, I didn't know that, at smaller places, you do have to wear many hats. Okay. And so a combination of that, me thinking that, oh, I'm going to go in and be, an editor, and a combination of, me just not knowing how the industry works. So I went in there a little naive, and things kind of hit the fan, because I was on the night shift and I was left alone, and I had to figure things out. And I remember this, this one guy he just took to me for some reason. And I called him and I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I haven't seen this before. Like, I don't even think this should be my job. Like, I want to be an editor, like, all this technical stuff. This isn't what I signed on for. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, teachers did say you need to focus on assistant editing, which is the technical aspect, less creative and more technical. So I'm like, oh, I didn't listen there. Okay. And I didn't prepare myself as much as I should have, right? Because I was so focused on editing and the creative part. And they were trying to teach us the technical aspect. And I kind of, I did it and but I kind of pushed it to the side a little bit because I wanted to focus on what I was passionate about, not necessarily listening to what reality was. So, and that, because they also stress that, if you do a really good job being an assistant, you will get there to being an editor, So anyways, now listen to that. So I'm in this situation and, at this place, you would get fired if you couldn't figure it out. It was that simple. If you couldn't do something they thought you could do, it doesn't matter whether you thought it was your job or whether, they're not going to go back and forth with you. It's like, if you can't do it and you can't figure it out, you're gone. And, me only coming with $2,000, that $2,000 was gone by then.
You're like, I'm going to do it.
At that time I had about 3 jobs. I was working at a Barnes and Noble's kiosk at the mall. I was working at Radio Shack, and now this was my first job in the industry. So I'm still working all 3. So I'm just like, I got to figure this out because I'm not going back to just Radio Shacks and Barnes and Noble, kiosks. So
I miss Radio Shack, but continue.
It actually taught me a lot of technical. So anyway, so I ended up taking another leap of faith. I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm passionate about being an editor. And because of that, I'm going to let it fuel me to do the things that I need to do to get there. So I started getting really good at technical stuff, and I ended up loving it. I loved the technical aspect of the industry. I mean, how, it was so much gear. And I didn't realize how much I just love gear. It's like toys to me, right? It's like Christmas. So, and that was back during the tape-based days. So it was back, when we were using more tapes. We weren't doing, digital files and all that kind of stuff. So I loved it. All these decks. I mean, it would be like hundreds of decks and video cameras and mixers and all these kind of tools that I was curious about. And so I ended up figuring out how to fix those things and, go above and beyond, because I said, you know what, I'm not an editor yet, but someone's going to see me doing something and shining at something so that I can get to, where I needed to go. And I think I would say that was the biggest challenge in the beginning, is figuring out how I'm going to shine or get to where I really wanted to be, which ended up changing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I did still want to do that, but I liked doing that, on my own time, in my own terms. So
it almost reminds me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so I did that on the side, but I loved doing the technical day to day.
Got it. It almost reminds me of how you pivoted from the first college you went to when you clashed with the coach. It's like this coach is asking for, things that are like, wait, what are you asking for? The structure was different. And then you're going into this, this job where it's like, hey, I'm here to do my editing. And they're like, hold up, you're going to do some other things if you want to be part of this team. And it just reminds me of the coach. He's like, you're like, wait, I'm here to play. I'm here to ball. What are we doing? You're not putting me in, coach. What's going on? And he's like, no, I'm going to need you to do some other things, And so it just reminds me of that, being open and saying absolutely. What is this really bringing me to right now? What am I open to, filling my cup with? Sometimes we think, I know what I'm doing, ain't nobody going to tell me I've done this. I know I'm good. But it just reminds me of that, being open to see, what is being brought to you rather than deflecting all those opportunities with, I guess, like you said, the naiveness, and then just this is my way and I know how it's supposed to look, but it's there might be another way and it might look a lot better, if you're open to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was, it was an interesting experience for sure. And I think I also learned too that, they were right about the industry being, it is, it can be flighty, and you have to really make a name for yourself. So that way, when things do happen or shows get canceled or, all those kind of things, that you built that network and you can find another job pretty quickly. Because what I've learned is I've been fortunate to never have been laid off for longer than a week. And that was because I chose to be. Mm-hmm. So I made a name for myself to the point where, everybody wanted to take me to their next gig. So, and that, that all that has so far has happened. And so I feel like you have to kind of hustle in that way. And so that experience, you know, showed me how, you know, where I didn't want to be again. I was like, okay, yeah, I got the first time I got laid off, I was like, I was terrified because I just got an apartment. You know, I was like, you know, I was doing well for myself. I had, you know, my 3 jobs, and I was like, okay, you know, I'm doing well, and I'm, you know, moving up. And I had actually taken on, I had gotten rid of the Barnes and Noble kiosk job, and I took on another assistant editing job. So I was working sometimes with only like 4 hours of sleep, because I would leave my one job, sleep in my car, and then go to the next job, you know, 4 hours later. And, you know, it was just like, just building, you know, just grinding, you know. And so,
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how are you managing all this, and like, what does that look like with working 3 jobs? And then, like, just like you said, like sleeping, balancing, trying to be your best at all 3, and then obviously, like, you know, putting your all into, like, you know, what you love at the same time.
yeah, I definitely got burnt out. I didn't have a good work-life balance. That's for sure. You know, that's something that, you know, in hindsight, I'm like, you know, I wish I would have taken a little bit better care of myself during those times. I was just so hungry,
Mm.
trying to, yeah, you know, climb the ladder, that I just, you know, and burnt myself out. So yeah, I would say it was, I was kind of forced to just let one of them go, let 1 or 2 of the jobs go. I just got so burned out that, you know, I didn't handle it, to answer your question.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't handle it after, you know, for a while it was fine, and it was, you know, you go until you can't go anymore.
Yeah. Well, now that you've experienced that, you've experienced burnout, you've experienced having a lot on your plate, like, what has that taught you now working at NBC Universal, where you're also doing, you know, many things as well? Like, how have you learned from that experience to ensure that you have that balance in your life?
One, I try to meditate frequently. I try to meditate frequently. I've learned that that works for me. It gets me
Mm,
off to a good start during the day. Um, you know, because my job can be um, it can be very frustrating, because things have to be done quickly.
hmm
And when you're working, you know, under the gun like that, you know, frequently it's, you know, you get frustrated quickly. And so I learned that I had to take a pause at some point in my day for me, so that way I could, you know, be more efficient. So I would say that. I would say also boundaries. I have
mm,
to, you know, set time for myself without my work phone, you know, stuff
mm.
like that. I have to, you know, not look at my work phone during the hours that I set for myself. I also exercise frequently to make sure that, you know, I'm energized, and, you know, I do things that feel good.
Yeah,
Um, you know, anything that feels good, I try to just do it.
gotcha.
You know, yeah, and trying to, you know, get enough sleep, and, you know, the basic needs. Like, I try to
hmm
just be consistent with that kind of stuff, getting, you know, decent sleep. And if I, you know, if I fall off track, or I've been learning from this one uh, person I've been following, this one athlete I've been following, that says, she says, don't say fall off track, just say, you know, shift priority.
Mm.
Because falling off track makes it feel like negative, right? And so it's not negative. So if I miss a day, or if I shift my priority, I'm not hard on myself anymore, because
Got
I
it.
think from an athletic background, me personally, I tend to be hard on myself, you know, and I think that that's kind of the consensus with being an athlete, is that, you know, push yourself, be hard on yourself, you know, like, you know, make sure you're, you know, almost perfect, you know. And I think that I've learned over time that, like, you know, you got to be forgiving to yourself. So I try to
Mm.
do that as well, to keep my balance.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely important to do that. I think we've all been there. We're our own worst critic, but then, like you said, just forgiving ourselves and like allowing, like, it's okay where we're at this moment, whatever that feeling
Right.
looks like or whatever it looks like, what's in front of us. And then, wait, what's your advice for someone who's like, I want to get into the film industry? Like, what does that really look like? because it's like this unknown place, right? And like you said, like you had to like do things that, weren't part of necessarily what you thought were your other duties assigned. They're not in the job description, but it's like all these other
Right.
things. And then like even getting to like continue to stay working, because I don't know a lot about the film industry, but it sounds like you can, like, there could be a show happening and then it could be over. Like there's seasons, like it's not something that's necessarily consistent, like maybe for some people, but like just getting your foot in the door. What would you say is your advice to someone like who's pursuing a career in the film industry?
Yeah, I mean, I would say start building your network is the most important thing, because it is a lot about who you know. Unfortunately, it's just so competitive and so big that it really becomes about who you know. And so someone will get, because the I would say the biggest thing is someone just giving you a shot,
Mm,
and so usually that's kind of what it comes down to, is like someone needs to like you enough to give you a shot. And so I think, just building your network. And, if, for example, like one of the things that I did was I just looked up, all kinds of production companies and post production houses like in my area, or within a certain mile range of where I lived, and just giving them a call, or sending an email. And it sometimes becomes a numbers game. So I would
mm.
call 80 places a day. Sometimes I'd be that annoying person. Um,
Are they
but I
back
mean,
from lunch yet?
I, mean, I didn't care. I was like, hey, maybe I won't see them again. I don't care about being a fool at this place. I might be working at that place. I just tried not to. I tried to have fun with it, and I tried not to worry too much. I just, because at the end of the day, I felt like I would learn something. At least I would
Hmm.
learn, you know, um, at least at the minimum, um, how places kind of operate. Like if you can't even, you can't call places anymore, then I'd find out, okay, well, most places, I can, go by email, stuff like that. Or I'd learn, I'd also look up, depending on what your interest is. I would say look up things that are like, if you're interested in, for example, I was interested in editing, I would look up the editors at certain companies and stuff like that, or studios that I watched more of those type of movies. You know what I mean? Like, there's some studio, like if you love Disney, you know what I mean? I'd
Hmm.
recommend reaching out to Disney studios, or studios, or looking up studios that or vendors that are affiliated with studios, and looking at their work, looking at what they do, learning as much about the process as possible, because also when you get your shot, you
Hmm.
want to show them that why you're interested, because the first question sometimes that they ask are, well, what is it about Disney? Why do you want to work at Disney? Why
Mm.
Disney? And so, you want to say, oh, I've been, something as simple as, I've been watching Disney movies forever. So I know almost every Disney movie. Or, let's say you haven't watched Disney movies, but you just feel like for whatever reason you want to work at that place. Saying, oh, well, I've been on the website. I know I respect these people that work there. I respect their work. Or, you want to, just do your research. So I would say that's the best place to start. And also, one thing that I will add, that I used to do was you can join a lot of like film groups. You can join
Mm.
meetup groups and start, just like watching more films, making yourself more curious, and then forming, groups around that and stuff, and forming a community, all part of networking, but just different ways of networking.
Mm. Yeah, that all makes like a lot of sense when you think about it. I mean, I even when you're saying that, I'm just thinking about, wow, if I actually paid attention to the credits, the part that we ignore, and like just using Disney for an example, like I start to pause at the credits, see who these editors are, if that's what I'm looking for, and then write them down, Google it, and then you're going to start to see like all the movies that they've been a part of, and then I
Exactly.
build a connection with that person, maybe on LinkedIn or whatever, and I'm like, I like the movies that you've edited or you've been a part of with, X, Y, and Z ABC movies. So it's like, okay, you've done some research.
Yep.
It's
Exactly.
not just like you're looking for like a handout, like, oh, hey, I know you work at Disney and, what can you do for me?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I would say too, on now, social media is pretty popular. So I would say, follow people and see what they're doing, because a lot of people that I work with or that I know, they post a lot of their personal projects online. And sometimes, you may reach out to them and say, hey, do you need any extra help for some of your
Mm,
side projects or some of your personal projects? You get to know people, and you start to, meet more people and build more of a network. And that really is kind of how it goes. And I think that another thing that was important that I learned was that there are so many jobs that you can't even think, that you just wouldn't even think about. Like,
mm,
I would say that, let's say you have, or I would say, don't get discouraged if you have an interest that you haven't heard of being a job, because it
mm,
probably is. Or you probably can create it,
mm,
because like, for example, there are Foley artists who their job is to go around and record noises that sound like other things. So let's
mm,
say, use a gunshot, for example. A real gunshot sounds horrible on film.
mm,
It's not what we hear in the movie. It's usually like a metal door slamming that they've
mm,
now mixed into sounding like a gunshot. That's someone's job. Who would think of that? You know what I mean? Who would think that that's a job? And there could be someone out there who, loves being out listening to different sounds, and, think, well, I guess, my only option is to be work in a recording studio, but it's not, you can
mm.
do something like that. And so, I would say too, to start looking up, if you have an idea, or haven't heard of this type of job, start looking that up, because it probably does exist.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like just like you said, something like that. I mean, you created your own scholarship fund, so definitely the sky's the limit. But
Yeah,
I mean that that's totally true, because I mean there's so much that goes into film, like just like the soundtrack, like it's like who comes up, like how did you find these songs to go at this perfect time? Like I'm sure there's a person who's dedicated, just for that. And I don't even know like anything that goes on behind the scenes. I'm just thinking like, wow, yeah, I love music and I get to listen to music that would be perfect for movies and
right.
films. And oh man, that's awesome. And you hear about these artists that nobody even knows about, and you get to like help them, like just bring them to the light more and more and more, get them more exposure. So I think that's really amazing, and thank you for sharing all that information too as well. And with all that knowledge that you gained at the same time, you then started your own company, right? So
Yes,
like,
I did.
yeah, so like what are you doing there, and like tell us about your company and what you're doing.
Yeah, so it's Crystal Clear Productions. It started out a while ago, back when I was, working many jobs, and I started taking on side projects. I would edit people's because I was, when I got so involved with the technical aspect, I started to, I was like, well, how else can I, have my creative outlet? And so I said, okay, I'm gonna do some side projects for people. And usually someone always wants something done, right? I have friends who love to do music videos and stuff. I have friends who were rappers, and so and sometimes I would ask them, hey, you want a music video? Like, sure. And I would do free projects, and it started out that way, just to get my experience up. And
Mm,
so I started out just doing music videos and reels. That's another thing too. Like, working in the industry, someone always needs a sizzle reel or a reel.
is
So
that
I
a
started
trailer?
so it's kind of like just a marketing of your, so actors, they always need like a reel to showcase their talent. So
Okay.
they submit to their agents, or, for whatever job they're trying to land. And so it really is just kind of a montage of their different, of their work.
Okay.
So, and then you kind of put that together with, music and stuff like that to showcase them. So, so yeah, so I started doing that, and started, getting a lot of work. And a lot of my clients were like older actors and actresses. And so, and I built relationships with them, and then they would introduce me to their friends and so forth. And so I was like, may as well start a business, because
Mm.
I'm already getting paid for it. And I'm already, because I started to, after I did so many for free, I was like, okay, I got my experience. Now it's time to get paid. So, I just decided, I said, I'm going to just turn it into a business. And so now I only have time to take, a few projects here and there. I probably only do like a project a month or something like that. But but it's still, it's great for me because, again, my creative outlet on my own terms, because I realized that editing for when I got the opportunity to edit uh, content videos for like HBO, stuff like that, it was it wasn't really for me to summons my creativity.
Mm.
It was like I needed kind of space and time and a little more freedom. And so I was like, oh, editing is for me, because you have a producer sitting in the room with you a lot of the time, and they're like, we're the creative juices, like, let's go. And so some people, can work like that really well, but me, it wasn't for me.
Mm.
So I decided that, I would just use my creative outlet for my own business. And that way I can go at my own terms. And I felt like I could be more creative that way.
Got it. Well, if there's anything that I learned from you, and now tell me you have your own business, if I'm looking into the film industry, hey, I need to hit up Crystal Clear Productions and be like, you need help with anything? I'm just putting everything together what you're teaching me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I'm like, I can help you get, 2 projects done a month.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's it, right? Is that what that's the way to go in and just like be of service,
Exactly.
basically.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, someone could say, oh, you know what? I see her on LinkedIn. Let me send her a message and see if she needs somebody to help, with her next project. I mean, it really does start there,
All right. Okay, I gave someone an internship, so go ahead and get that. Okay, so a couple of questions before we finish. Like, what is something that you're proud of yourself that you've done within the last month?
Within the last month, I would say I just finished rolling out all of the remote editing systems for my company, which was that was a huge task.
Okay, wait. But I don't know what that means. Like
Right,
rolling out.
Right. So the editors now can work from home.
Uh-huh.
I created a solution for them to be able to work remotely. So work at home, they can spend more time with their family. So now they have a better life-work balance. And so I'm really proud of that. I mean, people have been thanking me daily, and expressing how much happier they are now that they can work from home and they have that solution. And it was a huge grind. It was a challenge for me. And so I'm most proud of that, because I just finished. I just got the last person set up today out of 50 people. And so,
okay.
Yeah, so I'm most proud of that.
Awesome. So you've been part of the push for people to be able to work at home then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that it is. I mean, if you're able to be just as efficient at home as you are in the office, then why not? And if you want that, I think it's a great thing. And so I was happy to create that for people, because, like I said, people now can spend way more time with their families, and to me, that's what it's all about. Like, and also being able to, get things done at home. Like, I know sometimes if I'm able to work from home, it's like, I got a lot of stuff I can be getting done when I'm just like because like, some of the things I do is like, I'll, let things run in the background. Mm-hmm. And while things are running, while I'm waiting on them, I could be going and doing laundry. I could be going and, what I mean, going grocery shopping, or I could be getting some things done around the house that you can't always just get done in a weekend. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been pretty proud of that.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. That's awesome, because it just not only affected you, it affected other people. And there was a trickle-down effect into their own families, into their own households as well. So I feel like that's really beautiful. So yes, definitely, that is awesome. But I do want to thank you, Crystal, for being on the Mind Right Game Tight show. It was great to have you here and learn so much about you and the film industry. I think there's just so much behind the scenes that, for me personally, I just don't have a clue about. But I love learning that and having this platform here, and for you to share that, because there's other people who can learn from this and be able to connect and reach out and just continue to get their wheels turning into something that maybe they didn't even know they could possibly do, and pursue that at the same time as well. But I do want to say, like, if there's any way for people to contact you, if you have any like social media or a website for your business, like please share that right now so people know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's on LinkedIn. I'm Crystal Payne. So I urge people to reach out to me there. And Facebook again, Crystal Payne, Payne.
Gotcha.
Not Pain.
Not that pain.
Not that pain. But so yeah, feel free to reach out to me on either one of those. And yeah, and thank you, Michelle, for having me. And it was a great time. And I was excited to do this do this live video.
Yes. I just thought of another question though. Like,
yeah.
with the way the industry is, like, is there a transition happening? And are there, like, I know you talked about like creating your own position, but is
Mhm.
there like a niche that the industry is like looking for right now to be aware of, or like the way it's headed to start preparing yourself or like be ahead of it before it even gets there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say working from home has been the biggest transition that's been happening right now. So, anything that you can do to make yourself more self-sufficient, at home, is, I think, would be a great start.
Okay. And are there any particular jobs that are like, man, we need more people who need to learn this or anything like that? Like it's a scarce, like, oh, we need more people to learn this because we need to hire more of this. Is that happening right now?
Oh, absolutely. So assistant editors are always in high demand, because a lot of assistant editors want to go on to be editors, right? So um, places are really looking for people who want to be, an assistant editor who, love the technical aspect of that job, and just want to do that. Or also engineers, like myself. We're always looking for more engineers. It's such a it's such a specialty that not many people just have the desire to do, and it takes a lot of patience. And so we're always looking for engineers. And I would say right now there is a bit of a shift happening with the older editors retiring, especially with everything that happened with COVID and everything. A lot of it kind of pushed people more towards thinking about retiring a little earlier. So I would say editors are in demand as well. So yeah, because it usually the market for editors it's really competitive. But right now I think is the perfect time, because like I said, a lot of editors are retiring, and so now there's this wave happening where people have a better chance of getting in.
Mm. And I know you talked about the vocational training and getting that experience, but say, can I apply and can I get in as an assistant editor or at any type of internship without any background? Like, is someone willing to train, or they're going to be like, you need to go to school and at least get some background because it's too busy here and we don't have the time to necessarily do like on the job training where you have like no experience and it's more like, oh, I feel like I want to be an editor.
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. So there are a lot of studios that have internship programs. NBC Universal is one of them. If you go on the website, they do offer internships, and so do the other studios like Warner Brothers, Disney. So yeah, and I think Lionsgate and Paramount as well. I'm pretty sure. I'm not as familiar with the two of them, but it'd be worth it to go online to check. So I think those would be good places to start for people who don't have experience. And also, I'm willing to train. So,
Crystal Clear Productions in the house.
So I love training, hungry people. And so, if you are wanting to just start somewhere, because I think the best place to start is an assistant editor, because I think you get a little bit of everything there. You can kind of figure out what you want to do because you kind of touch everything. You coordinate with the graphics department, you coordinate with the music department, you coordinate with the editors. And so you get to interact with all departments and figure out, what your next step is. So I think that's a great place to start. And you also have a little bit of a heads up on other people because you know how it works from ground zero. Usually the assistant editors are the first people to touch the media, are the first people to get brought in on projects. And so you kind of know things from ground up, which I think is invaluable, because a lot of people at the top don't know how they're so far removed from the process that sometimes that works against them.
Yeah, like that's like in any job, I think we can experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's great. And I just want to say thank you again. And for anybody who knows anybody who wants to get in to the film industry and get the behind the scenes, I mean, you heard it here. Crystal said she's willing to train. So if you know somebody, if it's you, please like hit her up. I'll have her information in the description below as well. But please take advantage of it when people are saying like they're willing to help and they're saying it out loud. Like you don't have to like, wonder or be like, she's too busy. Nope, she's telling you she's ready and she's willing to help. So that's awesome. So once again, thank you, Crystal. But before we go, you just got to finish this question. I am grateful for
this opportunity. I'm grateful that you had me here.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that's the perfect way to say thank you, everybody, for tuning in for another episode of the Mind Right Game Tight Show. Treasure yourself and shine.
Thanks, guys.